Hi there, and welcome to Plant CEO. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome Seth Tibbott, the founder of the Tofurky Company. Hey Seth, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon to you too. Well, good morning. And you're
Yeah,
currently in Hood River.
yeah, I'm in the west coast of the United States, so sun's just coming up over here.
Yeah, it was lovely to meet you at the Plant-Based Expo in London back in December last year. So yeah, great that we managed to meet and great timing, obviously now for us to speak with the recent news that your company's just been acquired. And, we'll get into some of that and what that means for the company in a bit. But yeah, it was great to meet you there.
Yeah, that was a great show. I love coming to London and the UK, and I hate leaving London and coming back. I mean, it's great over here too, and I love America, but there's something special going on with veganism in London that's just so compelling and attractive. I really had a great time at the show and all of these great restaurants that you have over there, and just the way that you've propelled vegan forward. You're the epicenter of veganism in the world in my mind right now. So love
Yeah.
coming there.
Yeah, for sure. There's so many great places in the UK that's booming with veganism, and I think you mentioned before we came on the call that you were last here in, was it 2019, right?
Correct. So I was amazed at, the progress on the supermarket shelves in both plant-based meats and cheeses and milk chocolate. We don't have so much milk chocolate over here that you do. As a vegan, I never liked dark chocolate so much. I was a milk chocolate guy, but now, so I filled my suitcase with some candy bars
Oh, right,
and
yeah.
also cheeses and meats. And it was just a grand event to shop over there.
Yeah, for sure. Can we start by you telling me a little bit about your background story and how you went to found the company?
Yeah, sure. So I was actually teacher naturalist in throughout the 1970s, which was in my 20s. And then when I turned 30, I was in the place where the government had canceled a more conservative government. The Reagan government had come into power, and they weren't so hot on environmental anything. And so some of my jobs that I had dried up, and I had been a vegetarian and then even had some vegan episodes in the 70s. And I had found tempeh, and it was just like a revelation. It was so delicious and so nutritious that I was making tempeh in my home. And I decided in 1980, well, these guys don't like environment so much, but maybe they're good about business. They sure talk a lot about business. So I had never taken a business class or anything in my life and didn't know much about business, but I plunked down $2,500 in 1980, in December 1980, and started Turtle Island Foods. Was the original name and still is the official name, although the Tofurky Company is how we're known to the world. And I started making 50-kilo batches of tempeh at night, and I'd come in the next day and harvest them and then drive them around to the new natural food store movement that was just happening in Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon today is considered one of the most vegan friendly cities in the world, and especially in America. But even back then in 1980, it was ahead of its time. And I was lucky to be right on the area of Portland. So I started that, and I soon outgrew my little co-op kitchen where I was making it and had to make bigger batches. So I moved the company up here in the about 70 miles east of Portland to an old abandoned school building. And I made tempeh there in bigger and bigger amounts, slowly grew the company for 10 years. I was living my dream, but losing my shirt in terms of money. I wasn't profitable and living on about $300 a month of take-home pay. And so 7 of those 10 years, I lived in a tree house that I built. I was able to rent 4 trees from a neighbor for $25 a month. And, those were really good years. But after 10 years, I was thinking maybe I'm a failure at business. I'm not making money. I can't pay myself or my workers that much. So I tried to get out by writing a book about tree houses, but that didn't take off either. So I went back into the tempeh mines. I moved to Hood River, which is a little bigger town where we are today, and in 1995 introduced Tofurky roast at the Thanksgiving holiday over here. And that was a pivot that changed the course of my life and the company. And we added to that holiday offering with deli slices and sausage. And we now have about 43 vegan products. We've always been a vegan company. And up until last week, we were 44 years of independent family owned, which was pretty long run given the equity market of the past 10 or 20 years.
Completely, yeah, and yeah, congratulations on that huge run of being sort of independently family run company.
Oh
So
yeah,
amazing. And if you think about your key product, the Tofurky holiday roast, if you like, obviously in the US, it's turkey's consumed in Thanksgiving, and over here it's a lot obviously in Christmas. But what percentage of sales would you say is outside of those key holiday moments?
Oh, well, at first it was a very large percent, because Tofurky was one of the products that it was an unruly child. Like I had my well-mannered tempeh products that were growing very slowly and incrementally, and then Tofurky was just going wild. So there were years where it would be 40 or 50%, but right now those sales would be around 8% of total revenue. So,
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
we still do a lot of, we'll sell 300,000 or 400,000 roasts every holiday, and then also throughout the year. But, our main sales are in day-to-day products like deli slices and sausage and chicken and different products.
Yeah.
We actually now have cheese also. We have a brand called Moocho cheese, and that's doing well as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Moocho cheese. That's a great name, by the way.
Yeah, thanks.
And has it been 10 years since you launched that company, or was that less than that?
The Moocho, no,
Yeah.
Moocho was launched, I want to say, in 2019,
Okay.
and so it's a newcomer.
Yeah. And there's now been quite a lot of entrants in that, especially like the soft cheese space, I would say, from like, here there's a brand called Philadelphia. I'm not sure if that's a big brand in the US or not.
Oh yeah,
Oh, it is. Yeah. Okay.
that's our
So, I
city,
mean,
by the way,
yeah.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I was just wondering if it was a brand there, but yeah, I mean that was obviously consumed quite a lot from, and they were quite, I would say, a bit slow to launch. Now they have their plant-based product, which is actually really good. But
Yeah.
previous to that, there'd been like supermarket own brands. There'd been other brands here that, Oatly has its range, etc. Are you seeing a lot of competition within the soft cheese sort of spreadable space?
Yes. Well, there's competition in all these spaces, but yeah, we started out with just shredded cheese in the Moocho brand because that was a big market. But we've gone into this year, we just launched a cream cheese, 3 cream cheeses, a garden, a regular, and a strawberry. Just my favorite cream cheese. And so we're just placing those in now. But yeah, there's a lot of cream cheeses. And you know what I really noticed though in the UK market that I really liked was all the wonderful, like these are spreadable cheeses, but they're like Camembert and Brie and more artisanal cheeses. You know, the cheeses on the market over here, including Moocho, tend to be more industrial. And you have some nice craft makers like Mouse's Favorite, love their cheese, and blue cheeses, you know, the fromagerie. It's just wonderful to see that. And my favorite cheese in the UK that I've been on my hands and knees begging people over here to make is a sharp cheddar. And I think it's Cathedral City that I
That's right.
bought at Tesco. Have you had that one? It's
Yeah,
just so sharp and
yeah.
wonderful.
You know, when I was vegetarian, and we used to have a lot of that, but now they do a plant-based one as well, and that tastes really good
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
good one of the best alternatives at the moment, I would say.
yeah. But all in all, I had to show the passport control my cooler to, but you know, you can't bring in dairy cheese, but they're fine with bringing in all these cheeses. I got it packed with
Yeah,
meats and cheeses.
yeah.
And just because, you know, I had a great Christmas cheese plate. Let me just say that.
And is most of your ingredients on the Mucho one made from, is it coconut?
Depending on the variety, we have coconut oil, but we also have fava bean and starches.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's very
you
cool
know,
that you're using fava beans, by the way.
yeah, yeah. That is a nice. That's kind of one of the key ingredients in there. But yeah, it's a nice formulation. It was just voted best vegan cheese in America by the Today Show.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Amazing.
so that was nice. And yeah, I mean, it's a good cheese. But once again, I'm hoping for a sharp one soon. So we'll see if we can get that nailed.
Yeah, yeah. And I saw you were in a few different places in the US, like a few that I know, like Heb in Texas and Safeway on Colorado, for example. Are you working on, I guess, we'll come to the acquisition in a minute. I guess that's going to help you scale, but will you be going to more cities? Is that the plan with Mucho? And, you know, would you look at international?
Yeah, well, the Mucho has a shorter shelf life, so tougher to ship, and it doesn't freeze. You know, like
Right.
when we do ship international with containers. Some now, although you know we had to take a break from like the UK and Australia just due to the price of shipping. You know, over there, like containers went from $5,000 to $30,000 at one time. You know, they're coming back down now, but we're just sort of rebooting our international strategy and considering finding, you know, co-packers. We're working more and more with co-packers now, like the Muchos co-pack, because we don't have cheese making equipment. But we would probably go there for international, you know, is finding partners in the co-pack
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to help scale in different locations as well,
Yeah.
especially if those co-packers have also got distribution deals as well, where it makes it even easier.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, and we do that in the US, but we also think that that's the best strategy going forward
Yeah,
uh, for a number of reasons. So that's one of the, you know, key reasons too, to having a bigger partner, an international partner. And so,
yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that. So Moringa Nutritional Foods,
yeah.
is that how you pronounce them?
Morinaga.
Morinaga, sorry, right.
I trips me up too sometimes.
Yeah. And they were already a supply partner for you for tofu.
Oh yeah. You know, the nice thing about this acquisition is we've known these people and they're just been a great partner. You know, when I was I was first buying tofu, you know, and after the deli slices and the sausage came out, you know, we had a very high demand for tofu and we were scratching, knocking on a lot of doors to find enough tofu. And the tofu we were getting had shorter kind of shelf lives, and it all had to be refrigerated, of course. And we didn't have massive walk-in cooler space at that time. So it was cramming up, the coolers, and then people had to, cut open these boxes and lift everything around. And it was a kind of a nightmare, really. And then we found these guys, and they make shelf-stable tofu in these aseptic boxes. I don't know if you've seen them or if they are over in the UK. They are in, I think, Germany and some other markets in Europe. But they were like, we can make 2,500 pounds, like 1,200 kilo totes of tofu puree, organic tofu puree, that you can just pump throughout your plant right into your mixers. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is, we can now store tofu in our warehouse without refrigeration. And then when we break the seal, we just pump it into a big chilled tank that keeps it at temperature and then runs it right into the mixer. So that was one of the key parts of scaling up Tofurky that, when I look back, I'm not sure, what it would have looked like actually if we hadn't. And the other thing, they were right in Portland. Their plant was like an hour's drive away. So it wasn't like having to truck it all the way across the country or something like that. So it was a gift from the universe, is what I said to myself at the time. This is one of the biggest gifts that we've had. So, and then over the years, they've just been a great partner, and they've never missed an order and always supplied us. And they're just so well organized and humble. And, it's not like, when a lot of times I think these acquisitions happen, and, you don't know the people behind it. And sometimes that causes deals to go sideways. But having had this almost 20-year relationship with these guys is just really given us a lot of confidence and, belief that this will be a good match, because we feel like they've demonstrated themselves over and over again to be good, generous vendors and good supplier.
That's amazing. And in terms of, like, I guess the timing, why do you think it was the right time now for your company? Also, when in some ways the valuations are down with some of the public market stocks, like the Beyond Meats, for example.
Well, this whole process has been like a couple of year process in itself, but our business model of family-owned independent was built during a time where the sales of the category were incrementally, increasing, and it was a very different market than what we find ourselves in now. Like, for instance, getting into these big Kroger and Walmart kind of accounts, there was never like that much of money that you had to buy the shelf space, and it's all changed now. And you always have to examine your business model and ask yourself the question, is it still relevant? Is this still working in the climate of today? And so with the climate of, that we were in as a business, we just felt like we were being hampered by our non-equity sort of choice. And so we started to look around and, had several different explorations with different companies, but, we really felt like the need to clean up, our balance sheet, and to get a bigger arm, a financial arm in there that can supercharge us and get us on more of a level playing field with some of these others that have already made this move to a purchase equity kind of situation, as opposed to our little family run or big family run. We're like the number 3 maker of plant-based meats in the U.S. after there's Beyond and then Possible and then Tofurky. So we hope to even surpass one of those ones. That would be a goal. So
Yeah, and also like I think is it Gardenia? Is that also quite
Gardein,
Gardein?
yes.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, they're big. I should preface this to say, in the refrigerated
Okay.
sector, because Gardein plays in frozen. That's a good point.
Yeah, yeah, they're huge actually as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they're a big, good company. I enjoy their products.
Yeah, yeah. So now that the acquisition is done, what's their plans with the company? Is it mainly scaling with some of the retail space, or is it like country expansion? What's their
Both.
plans? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it's both. And, we're just sort of, we've had meetings and talked about that, but now we're getting down to the nitty gritty now that it's a reality. But yeah, I think international markets is definitely something that we'd like to do, because we were doing well, in the UK and in Australia and some of these other markets. So we would like to get back there. We have those aspirations. They have some pretty good technical people that can add value to our R&D sector, and so we're looking forward to working with them. And then we also hope to help market their own product of the tofu. We love their tofu, and we would like to have it be not just a one way, them helping us, but we want to help them. That's a win-win synergistic thing. But yeah, they have a lot to offer a company like ours. So we're grateful to be in business with them.
Yep, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah, it'll be good to see you back in more markets, especially coming back here in the UK, and
Yeah.
because I don't think there's too many other sort of companies, especially with the Tofurky roast, that is competing with you on that space.
Yeah, that those were very well received, and we think our deli slices are of top quality. That is like a really big sector for us over in the U.S. I think we have a 72% or something market share in that category, and so we're famous for that.
Yeah.
Um,
You're selling those deli slices into those like independent deli stores as well, right? Through
yeah, we have a very wide distribution network of that, and one of the things that we're excited about now is that we're looking more and more into food service. We've mostly been retail, we haven't done a lot with food service, but we have this new R&D guy that came to us from Beyond, and he's like a genius heading that department. And he's created this pepperoni that is out of this world. It's next level pepperoni. We've had pepperoni and we've looked at what's out there, and the problem with plant-based pepperoni has been that it dries out so much because of the lack of fat or moist,
yeah.
doesn't have that pooling up effect, that a meat-based pepperoni does. And he's managed to create this pepperoni that holds up to the heat in the oven and curls up on the top of pizza, and it just has this incredible taste. In fact, that's what I was eating the cheddar, the Cathedral City cheese with. I put some pepperoni out on my, our cheese plate, and had it on a cracker with the pepperoni, and oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I was in heaven. So that we're excited about that. And we're going to the pizza show in Las Vegas next month. And,
Yeah.
uh, you
I don't know
know,
if when you were at the show in London, did you try pepperoni slices by Jack and Bry, which are sort of jackfruit based?
I know the principals there, Jennifer Pardo, and
Yeah.
I didn't get to try her pepperoni. Was that a good one, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've done really well to get their slices with different pizza manufacturers as well. So
Oh, good.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
and that doesn't surprise me. She's very good at running things.
Yeah, yeah. So yours would be based on tempeh though,
No,
or
it's
is
not
it different
tempeh
ingredients?
based. This is just, it's got some pea protein, and so
Right.
it would be, I think, more pea protein based than um,
Yeah,
anything,
yeah,
but
yeah,
not tempeh.
yeah. Well, I
But we
hope.
still make tempeh, and love tempeh. But I was amazed at how many tempeh shops there are in London now. There's 7 tempeh makers in London.
Yeah, 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 for
I mean,
sure.
selling in that market. And I know there was, I think, 5 at that show, which was
Yeah,
amazing, you know.
it's growing. It's quite a versatile product, isn't it? In terms of the what you
Yeah,
can do with it, and when obviously you have to flavor it well.
yeah, you do. But nutritionally,
Oh
it
yeah,
stands alone in the plant-based, refrigerated protein category. It's really an amazing food.
yeah. I just wanted to move on to your book actually. So in 2020, you wrote a business book.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh, lovely. There it is. Yep. Called "In the Search of the Wild Tofurky: How a Business Misfit Pioneered Plant-Based Foods Before They Were Cool," which is a great title. Obviously, I was reading the first chapter last night, and if you could tell me a bit of the main highs and lows that you described in that book. But before you do, there was one bit where you mentioned where you met a fellow student called Laurel. Can you recall? Can you say, what she said to you and what really resonated with you at that time?
Yeah, so Laurel was a friend in college. She was an art major, and she had this beautiful lab called laboratory, I mean, not laboratory, dog called Gullum. And she really was the first person that she invited me over and a friend to a meal of lentils, rice, and onions. And she was talking about that we really didn't need to be feeding animals these grains, that we could just feed directly to people. And that was something that really resonated with me. And she talked, she was ahead of her time, and vegetarian was just getting started because there were no books then, there was no internet, so there was no videos about how animals were being treated. It was all like a big secret. And there was just another book, Diet for a Small Planet, that she recommended I read, and I read that. And that was talking about, just that same thing about eating. We need to eat lower on the food chain. We need to eat plants and not animals, because that's a very poor return, putting all of these grains into an animal and then only getting, a fraction of that back in protein. So between Laurel and the book of Diet for a Small Planet, I started my vegetarian journey. But I was a poor vegetarian in terms of my diet. There wasn't that much in the way of cookbooks or nutrition information. So I was like, yeah, I'll be a vegetarian. I'll eat these vanilla wafers or chips or, crisps. And I wasn't eating very healthy for a while there. But then, tempeh came in and sort of filled that gap and became like a go-to protein food. Because and back then my mom was like, oh, you're going to die because you don't eat meat, and where are you going to get your protein? And I'm like, no, I'm going to eat soybeans, Mom, I'm fine. And so she later was happy to hear that and do that. But a lot of people there was a lot of misinformation out there, I think, and to a degree still is today. But I think that we've turned a corner, and there's very little dispute of the nutritional value of plant-based foods, and that it's a really actually healthy diet, and
Yeah.
a great way to sustain humans.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, like you say, I think she was definitely well ahead of her time coming out with what she told you back then. About living on the lower end of the food chain,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
that we could free up more resources to feed people
yeah.
and save land for wild animals. It's quite amazing. Um,
But
can you?
going back to your question about,
Yeah.
highs and lows, one story
Yes.
that I tell in the book that I really um, was a high and a low was, so December of 1980, the first of December 1, 1980 was when I sent in my business application to the state of Oregon, and went into business, and I was pretty excited because it was so weird to me to be in business after all these years teaching and laughing at business majors in college, because back then business was not the place where you went to change the world, because business was like the generals, General Foods, General Motors. It was, the Vietnam War was raging, and you didn't look to business as a element of change. So, anyways, here I was in business, and I went out for Christmas to visit my aunt Rosie in Minnesota, in the Midwest part, which is more conservative than West and East Coast. And I sat down after dinner one night with Rosie, and I was so excited, and I was telling her about how I was going to make tempeh and feed people soybeans, and she just at one point she just goes, stop, Seth. This is a terrible idea. This is a meat eating country. It's always going to be a meat eating country, and nobody is going to want to eat your soybeans, especially not moldy ones. And so I was like, whoa, uh, thanks for your advice, Rosie, but you know what? I'm going to go back and see if that's true or not. But so that was kind of like a little bit of a low point. But then fast forward to 20 years later, and I'm just sitting in my office at the end of a big Tofurky season, and it's the last week of December, and I'm getting ready to go home, and it's 7 o'clock at night, and the phone rings, and I go, should I answer this? I don't know. I need to get home, see my family. But then I said, oh, okay, it's probably a customer. I'll pick it up. And I picked it up, and this voice on the other end goes, Seth, Seth. And I go, Rosie, is that you? And she's like, Seth, you were just a question on Jeopardy, the most famous TV show in America. And it said, the answer was Thanksgiving alternative made by entrepreneur Seth Tibbott. And I said, that's my nephew. I knew it was going to be a good idea. Like,
Amazing.
thanks, Rosie. So that was a high point, flipping Aunt Rosie from a doubter to an adopter.
Yeah,
And
amazing. Yeah.
so that was good. But, all in all, even those days of living in a tree with $300 a month and eating nuts and berries, those were great days. It's all been a really fun ride, and I just feel so lucky to have grown up with the plant-based foods movement, and being a part of that has just been one of the great joys of my life, really. And it's certainly, there's been tough moments and moments of doubt. It's not all been a road of oranges, as they say, but it's just been great to see now and look back and to see where the industry is now. And when you look at it from a long lens, because there's frustration, I know, as vegans and vegetarians, we're like, why are we only X%, or why isn't it like all over the stores? And I'm saying it is all over the stores compared to, where we were at when the category was really zero in the supermarket, certainly in, 1970s and 80s. And looking at it today, I'm like, man, this is an amazing time of growth, and it's continuing. So we're just at the beginning of it, really, too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's still very much early days and a lot of room still left to grow for the industry. And so if you were going to start, I guess, a new company, a new plant-based company today, what would you do?
Well, that's a good question. I've never been asked that one. But I think that um, I always try and look for, what I call the unicorn ideas. Like, there's innovations that are like building a better mousetrap, and there's ones that are like what I call unicorns, where it's just like so crazy and it's a white space that no one's in.
Right.
I mean, that was what Tofurky was. Tofurky was a unicorn, and then everything else from then is kind of like a better mousetrap. But uh, and so looking at where are the white spaces now is my kind of question. I still think, like, for instance, the sharp cheddar cheese market is a white space. So I felt like that one that I had in the UK was kind of a unicorn project, and it really stood out. But I might have to do that myself. Now
Yeah.
I can't, right? Because my hands are tied with I've signed a 3-year non-compete clause.
Okay.
It's
So,
fine, but that would be, I would look for, it's way easier, to be like in a white space where you don't have any competition. And I mean, there's challenges there too of getting people to understand, and there's marketing challenges, but overall it's easier than attacking an already mature category.
yeah.
So
And you mentioned there that you're on a 3-year non-compete, but what's your involvement going to be now? Will you still be involved? You're not part of the board anymore, right? So
right.
what's going to be your role, and how will you still
um
be there?
to be determined, I would say. We need to sit down and define my role better, but I hope to I've kind of been over the last, I'm 71 now, and I've
Wow.
been pushing more. I've been doing a lot of talks. I've been working with a lot of different organizations, nonprofits. I'm kind of more interested in. I'll always be interested in Tofurky and telling the Tofurky story, but I also like the space as a whole, and I love working with these nonprofits that are doing great things. I have a nonprofit in Ukraine that is feeding free vegan meals to war refugees that I've been trying to support, and actually been thinking about bringing them over to London for some talks and
Yeah, that would be
explaining what it's
amazing.
like being a vegan during war in Ukraine. And then this other one that I really like is it's called the Podstruka Foundation in Kampala. I was in Nepal giving talks at a Himalayan vegan festival last fall, and I met this amazing guy, Dash, who is feeding free vegan meals to at-risk kids in Uganda who,
Yeah.
they go to school and it's so poor that the uh, kids, it's like their only meal or one of their main meals of the day is at school, and the school doesn't have enough money to feed them. So
Yeah, that's
uh,
amazing. By the way,
that's,
my family heritage was formed also part in Kampala in
oh
Uganda.
my goodness.
So yeah, so my parents they moved from India to East Africa. My dad used to work in Barclays Bank there.
Yeah,
So yeah, they had is years. I think it was around 20, that sort of age when they were there before getting a transfer to London. Yeah. So
yeah. Amazing. So have you been down to Uganda?
I haven't, but my sisters were born there. But there
Nice.
definitely is a beautiful country there,
Oh
and
yeah,
and
it
that
looks
town's
like it.
really nice.
So I even I'm exploring the idea of, I've always wanted to build a tempeh shop in like a third world country where there's a need for nutrition. And that's one of my aspirational goals right now that I'm exploring there, because it's like 30% of the kids in Uganda have a stunting problem where they're not growing to their overall, you know, height and weight and intellectual property because of the lack of nutrition and specifically protein. So,
Yeah,
and the nice thing about tempeh, I mean, like I started that tempeh shop on very little money, and you don't need to, have all these pumps and tanks and everything. You can do it on a pretty appropriate technology level. So that's the kind of things that excite me. Although, but with Tofurky, I love R&D and new products, and I'm a unicorn hunter. So, when I go out and travel, I see ideas that are working in other cultures, and sometimes, you can bring a version of those back. I mean, that, like, for instance, our sausage, we were the first ones to come out with sausages, like in the US. It was all hot dogs, and there was like 13 SKUs of hot dogs, long ones, skinny ones, fat ones, spicy ones, in like 2000. And I went over to the UK and I saw, well, look at all these, it's not burgers over here as much as it's sausage, and
yeah,
I'm going to make sausage there. So we came out with Italian and kielbasa and beer brats, and they were a big hit, and that's an example of, there's a lot we can learn from you in the UK and in uh, Europe, and I guess it's vice versa. We one hand
yeah.
washes the other, but travel broadens. So yeah, those are the kind of things that I think I have to offer, a
Yeah,
unique historical view with
yeah, for sure.
the company, and with, I have some ideas for products too. So
That's great. Yeah, it's great that you'll obviously remain active in the space, and yeah, just want to also thank you for being a leader in the industry from such an early time, and obviously that's made an impact for the amount of animals that have been saved, especially obviously turkeys, at those holiday periods. And yeah, it'll be great to keep in touch and see what you bring to the table next.
yeah, I'm excited for the future. Like I said, this isn't the end. It's the beginning, and we have a long way to go, but we've come a long way, and it's exciting to see. It's like my father saw the Wright brothers fly, if you can imagine that.
Wow.
Not a kitty hawk, but a couple of years later, when they were trying to sell their invention to the army in the Washington D.C. area, and then he's over the span of his lifetime, that was when he was like 12 or something, and then he lived to see people walking on the moon. And so I think that when I look back, that watching the same growth of plant-based foods from their Wright brothers sort of origin to today, just touching the surface of the moon, but we haven't built colonies on it yet. I mean, it's the same sort of analogy. I think about my dad's march through technology and innovation, and my own life, looking at the growth. And it's one of the most satisfying things that I'm so grateful for, is seeing this growth, and so excited for what's ahead for us as an industry. And we want all vegan companies to succeed, and
100%. Yeah.
that's the mission of Tofurky.
Yep. So thank you so much again, Seth, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great to be here. I really appreciate the invite, and I hope to see you again in London or I'll come over here and visit.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
Great.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Cheers.